All right, fellas, we are live.
Good evening, Circa Survivor contestants, and welcome to Saturday Night Sweat. We are live right now. We're going to get you ready for the Week 7 action tomorrow. We're going to talk a little Circa Survivor strategy. We're going to talk a little Grandissimo. We're going to react to the news that we heard about 30 minutes ago about what the entry counts are for Grandissimo and Circa Survivor. About 78.8% of the remaining pool is on 3 teams: Chiefs, Patriots, and Bears. I'm here with Mike Buckmiller, producer Nick, and David Baker. Fellas, let's jump right into it. Mike, I'm going to start with you. What was your first reaction when we learned the Steelers only had about 4% or so, and the number 1 selection was the Kansas City Chiefs, even though they have 2 times holiday implications? What were your reactions?
Yeah, my reaction is people are getting skittish for those Thursday night affairs. Just quick turnaround, not enough data. You know, it could have been the division game. I don't know. We had the floor at 5%, the ceiling at around 8-9%. So 4% is a little less than we had anticipated, but I think it's just Thursday. I don't think people are ready to get after it anymore.
Sounds good. David, how about you? What were your reactions when you saw those selection numbers?
Well, I thought the Chiefs were going to be number 1, so that part didn't surprise me. The Chiefs and the Patriots came in about where I thought. I was surprised on the Steelers. Earlier in the week, Pool Genius had them at 13%, and then when I rechecked it, they had them at 5%. So obviously I thought 13 was high, so I bumped it down. I was like, maybe there's more than I thought. I thought maybe 10 or 11. But then they bumped it down to 5. I was like, okay, that's like a little bit more like I thought, but I still thought maybe 8.
Yeah.
But it's just recency bias. And also, I think it's a testament to how big this contest has gotten. There are a lot of people in here for the first time, and there's a lot of the chalk has won. So a lot of the people who go contrarian have been eliminated, and the people who have just rode the chalk have stayed in. And also the people who have faded Thursday night have kind of seen, oh, this doesn't work because the last 2 favorites lost. So I think it's just more of recency bias. And like if the Rams if this was the exact same setup and the Rams and the Eagles hadn't just lost the previous Thursdays, I think this would have been in the 10 to 12% range. So it's kind of knowing your contest, I think.
Yeah.
Mike, walk us through where you guys landed for Circa Survivor. For those who don't know, Mike's a former Circa Survivor champ with his business partner, Russ. Walk us through which teams you landed on this week and how'd you get there?
Yeah, we faded the Steelers. We didn't like this spot. We also like the Steelers in a bottleneck spot where there's not a lot of teams to pick from. So we definitely faded them. We liked Cincinnati going in. We bet it outright. We ended up landing on the Packers, Broncos, and a few on the Chiefs. We just liked those spots. I was a little surprised that the Chiefs got, driven up that high. I knew they would be taken, but we liked our spot with the Packers here. We liked our spot with the Broncos here. And actually, to be totally honest, I hate this week. I think this week is horrendous. And I think there's a lot of frauds out there. And I think if the Chiefs get through, there's a chance that this poll gets just cut and whacked hard this week. There are some of the top percentages this week, and these teams they're to be determined for me, to be honest. And I just don't like, as I gamed them out and I worked them from a sports betting standpoint, didn't like them, bet against a lot of them. And so I'm hoping that we get through with the Chiefs. I'm not warm and fuzzy with the Packers. I'm not warm and fuzzy with the Broncos, but we're undercutting the pool, and we're going to see if we can't get through and see what happens.
To your point there, Mike, they're not only were there tough games this week, but also weather implications, windy games and rainy games in several of these contests. So that tells me maybe this is the week that we have carnage. I have to ask you a follow-up question, Mike. I know you're on the Packers. Their team plane leaves 5 or 6 hours late today. Keyshawn Nix, their starting cornerback, has an illness. He's now questionable. Those things make you a little nervous, or do you just kind of block it out, say, hey, the point spread didn't move? I know you didn't love it to begin with. Does that make you a little nervous?
Yeah, I mean, of course, anytime you hear that after the lock of the picks or it comes out, I don't really love it. That said, I mean, Murray isn't going to play again. And I don't know how I think Jacoby is maybe 2 points difference than Murray, to be honest. So for that, so be it. But I'm not on the Bears here. I'm fading the Bears. I don't like their spot. Short week. And I don't like a lot of their metrics. I think they're a Fugazi team at this point. I also don't like the Pats this week. It's the third road team, third game on the road in a row. Yes, it is a revenge game for Vrabel, whatever that means. But listen, anytime a team gives max effort will be when there's a different leadership voice. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans I got Pats on upset alert.
All right. Before we get to you, David, I don't know if this helps or hurts, Mike, but I happen to have a former Green Bay Packer in my phone. I reached out to him, my buddy Ken. He played for the Packers for over 10 years. He was Brett Favre's left tackle. I said, hey, any concern about the Packers team plane leaving just a few minutes ago? They're 5 or 6 hours behind. I just wanted to get like a player's insight into this, how it affects their schedule and stuff.
Sure.
He said, crazy, that sucks, but pros should be pros. There will be some bitching and moaning, but correctable by tomorrow if they are pros. Let's see. So kind of a lukewarm reaction to that. David, back to you. If you can walk us through your process, where did you land this week and how'd you get there?
Well, I've got 4 entries left, and they're kind of in blocks of 2. 2 of them are similar, and 2 of them are completely opposite as to what we've used and where we went. On 2 of them, they're kind of not that great of entries. They use the Ravens and the Lions already, so for those, I just eliminated the Chiefs. They weren't really in the discussion. So really, the Patriots, I thought, I'm unlike Mike in that scenario. Is I do think the Patriots are going to win, but I just felt like there were just better spots later that I could deploy them. The Bears, I am worried about them coming off of a big win on Monday night, but when are you going to have a chance to use them? And this entry is really not that good. So I figured we probably had to save whatever Packers and Rams and Broncos and things like that we had left and just kind of try to get a team through. So we played the Bears on those. Not warm and fuzzy, but I kind of thought some people would get scared off. I didn't think they would hit 20%, and they're not. They're 18, even though some other places had them at 23. So I'm kind of happy with that. It's just more of a play of just to try to get those entries back on track with some future value. The other entries, we haven't used any holiday teams yet. So I felt pretty comfortable using the Chiefs. I can't imagine that the Chiefs are going to be my selection on Thanksgiving. So it's really just about Christmas at home versus Denver. I don't think that I would play them on the road at Dallas. And really, if you really look at Kansas City, the only other spot they really have the rest of the season is Tennessee, week 16, I think it is. Yeah. They don't really have a lot of win. I mean, they're going to be favored in every game, but it's exactly what I said a few weeks ago when I said the Patriots had more future value than the Bills. The Bills will be favored in every game, but the games the Patriots are going to be favored, they're going to be much bigger favored. That was kind of the case with the Chiefs. The Chiefs don't really have a ton of spots other than the holiday spots. If it wasn't for the holiday, really the Tennessee spot is really the only good spot for them. So I considered the Packers. I think it's a good play from a math perspective, but with so many people using them last week, and a few using them this week, I'm hoping that they'll get whittled down and we'll be able to use them in week 9 when hopefully only like 30% or 25% maybe only have them left. Consider the Broncos too, but they have a really good spot coming up. And also they might be able to go full leverage on Christmas if we can find a comfortable spot in week 10. Having the Broncos to go full leverage against the Chiefs would be a really nice spot to have in our back pocket too. So that's kind of our thought process that we went with there.
David, you bring up week 10. This is just my opinion. There's only 3 teams that I trust in week 10. Buffalo, Denver, and Seattle. Those are the only 3 that I trust. I think there's a massive drop-off after that. First of all, do you agree with that sentiment? And 2, is there another week besides week 10, besides Thanksgiving and Christmas, that kind of scare you a little bit, whether it has to do with your particular path or you just look at that week and say, there's just not a lot of good teams that week? That's concerning. It's a little bit of a bottleneck. Any other weeks stick out to you?
Yeah, I think there was one other team on week 10 I liked, but yeah, there's I think like maybe 12 or something. It's like Chargers or something. I can't remember exactly which week it is. But yeah, I mean there were a couple along the way, but it's more just a common path is becoming very common. When I look at it, it's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to play the Rams week 9. Well, so is everybody. We're going to play the Colts week 8. Well, so is everybody. We're going to play, and that's why I kind of thought this was kind of a reasonable spot to save Denver. We only have them on one entry, to be fair. So I really didn't have a lot of options. But on week 10, that's a pretty good spot to use them. But yeah, that's kind of the thought process. I really, if Garrett Wilson was playing, I would have played the Jets, to be honest. I think this is a prime week, if you don't like the Patriots, to really try to sneak one of these teams through. If I could have gotten there on Cleveland, I just don't like Cleveland in this spot. I know everybody loves Cleveland. They were the second most popular pick in millions. I just couldn't get there. If the Jets were at all any healthier, I would have been comfortable playing the Jets, because this is a week, and that's kind of why we just ended up ultimately on the Bears. It's just one of these spots where we got to start saving some of these decent teams just so we can have options. You don't know when teams are going to peak and when they're not going to peak. And if we can just kind of sneak the Bears through here, I felt better about our path. That was kind of it. We've got the Falcons and the Bucks are going to be interesting down the stretch, because they both get to play the Saints multiple times and the Panthers. So like when you deploy those teams are going to kind of determine. It's kind of like the Patriots situation where you couldn't deploy them multiple weeks, and it's kind of when do you choose to fire those bullets.
Mike, David brings up that Browns-Miami game. I think that Panthers game is kind of in a similar vein. It's an opportunity. If you have the stones for it, you can gain big time on the crowd, because these teams don't have a lot of future value. Did you give any consideration at all to Jets, Browns, Panthers, etc.?
Absolutely. In fact, we have one Brown. So we have double-digit entries left, and we have a different paths, different permutations, and we look at max survival. We look at ways that we can get plus EV versus the pool. And we do have a Browns entry, believe it or not. We also have a Lions entry. So we have multiple paths with different teams. When we go on the Survivor Sweat X handle, we always give our top 3 selections. Hopefully we continue to have 3+ selections. So when I say that, we're on the pack, Denver and KC, we also have some outliers just in case this thing just gets absolutely haywire. And we have multiple chances. So we have 5 teams this week, but one position on the Browns and one position on the Lions. I don't consider that an actual taking that stand, if you will. We're just hoping to get our entries through with different paths and different permutations and different trees so that we can get there. I didn't consider the Jets in Carolina. I handicapped the game. I didn't like it. I don't like it on either side. To me, though, that game's a coin flip. I really like the Browns here. I don't like the fact that the public likes the Browns, because then I feel like I'm a fish. But I just, when I broke the game down, and what's going on in the locker room in Miami right now was kind of the tipping point for me. You look at the weather and you look at the team that's going to be able to run the football tomorrow. And I'm going to take that team, and, hey, Miami can blow them out. And I wouldn't be surprised. But that said, this is your chance to put Cleveland on a ticket, that we burn some better teams and we can get back into the fold with that ticket.
Before we get to our next guest, I have a follow-up question here for you, Mike. When you talk about being on the Lions, does the fact that they play on Monday have anything at all to do with it? Like, hey, maybe there's carnage and I can have a hedge piece, et cetera? Or is it a little too early to start thinking like that?
In the main, it's a little too early. In Grandissimo, absolutely. You definitely have an edge depending on what happens, obviously, tomorrow. But for us, we have to have different paths, because we can't find ourselves with every entry on the Lions. And so, sometimes we have to just be outside the lines a little bit. Now, who knows? Maybe there's complete carnage tomorrow and we all show up here and go, what the heck just happened? And yet we're happy to have the Lions. But at this stage of the game, no, that wasn't any deciding factor for us.
Mike, real quick, I have a familiar face in chat for you here real quick, Mike. I think you might know this guy.
Yes, sir.
What's up, Peyton?
Yeah.
What's the relation?
He's my son.
Nice.
He lives out in Denver, and he's got a small piece of our fund. So
nice.
He loves to root. Yeah, for sure.
I love it. Good stuff. All right, we're going to bring in our next guest, and we are going to talk Grandissimo a little bit more in depth later in the show, guys. So look forward to that. But let's go ahead and bring in Tom Viola. His first time on the show. Tom Viola is a sports bettor, formerly with Unabated. He's now with Wager Talk. Welcome to the show, Tom. We're glad to have you.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to talk a little bit here.
Absolutely. I understand you're alive in a few of your Survivor pools, not Circa Survivor, but a few of your Survivor pools right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do a partnership for Circa Survivor with a couple people every year, and I was voted down in week 4. The Cowboys-Packers tie is what got us.
Oh.
I wanted to pick the Houston Texans that week, so still a little bit bitter, but it is what it is,
It is what it is. That's a tough one there. If you were still alive in Circa Survivor, Thomas, with all the holiday implications, etc., where would you have landed this week?
I mean, in most of my pools, I ended up on the Patriots this week. I do get what you guys are saying about all the future value behind them and the kind of choosing your spots with each team. I think this is just the week where I want to kind of save some of those teams, and especially now that all of a sudden that Ravens-Bengals game that we were all licking our chops and saying, okay, that's Dojo Burrow, Ravens are going to be fine. That's our holiday game.
Mm-hmm.
Now I really want to be saving the Chiefs as well. And my strategy, had we gotten there the entire way, was save as many holiday teams as possible, because and I'm pretty sure you guys were already talking about this. You don't know what these teams are going to look like at Thanksgiving. You may think you know in September, but an injury can change the shape of any of these teams in any of these games drastically.
So true. Thomas, take us through your process. How, when you're looking at the NFL slate each week, when you're in Survivor pools, how do you get from point A to point B? Are you a ball knowledge guy? Are you a numbers guy? Like, how do you get there?
It's a combination of a little bit of all of that, because on the one hand, like first thing I'm doing is, okay, let's look at the spreads each week. Let's see where the market's going, what that's dictating. The second thing is I have a couple specific rules that I like to follow. And one got broken was, you don't want to take road teams. You generally want to be on home teams the entire way that you're going here. And especially, I risked it in a couple road divisional games, but man, I want to stick away from those as much as I can and try and take some of these interconference games. And, you're mostly sticking to favorites. And then the third thing that you really have to keep in mind is, and shout out to some of the tools like Pool Genius, which you guys have mentioned, Survivor Atlas, you have to keep in mind where everybody's going to be, because it's not just about picking the right game each week. It's also about, it's not just surviving. It's also making sure that you're not on the massive chalk favorite, so that when that big hit comes, when that carnage comes, you're not the one getting hit. So that's the other thing I look at after all that. And I've kind of narrowed it down to, okay, these are my candidates. Who's going to be the most likely picked team? Is this a week that I want to zig versus zag? Stuff like that.
Thomas mentions not liking to be on road teams. I remember when we had Paulie Howard on a previous show, he said he likes to not go against good teams. It sounds like even if, they have injuries or something like that. I think that's another good rule. David and Mike, do you have any, I don't think I've asked you guys this question yet on this show. Do you have any personal rules that you're really strict on that you will never break when it comes to picking Survivor teams each week?
No, I mean, I think that's generally just built into the line. I mean, if a team is 7 points on the road and they're let's just say minus 340, if they're 7 points and minus 340 at home, they have the same odds to lose. So I don't really follow that. Obviously, the division stuff, I get it because they're more familiar with each other. But as a general rule, I try to just assess every situation on its own merit and, make my decision based on that.
I'll tell you what, people who have the rule no Thursday games, I think they might be doing all right this year in their Survivor pool. Mike, how about you? Do you have any rules?
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's recency biased. And you know what? If you do this long enough, you can't have rules. You have to you have to adapt with what you're doing. And what David said is like the numbers. And if we believe Vegas is good at what they do, it's all baked in. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, like we've taken road teams, we've taken Thursday night games, Sunday night games, we've taken, games overseas and stuff like that. I think that's a little played out, to be honest. And for me, it's about handicapping, getting in there, looking line versus line, position versus position, understanding what teams play well against other teams. And yeah, of course, division games can get a little dicey because they're familiar, especially the second time around. I get that. First time around, it can be completely different with a new coaching staff. It could be a whole new offense, a new coordinator. We don't know. It could be to their advantage, actually, to be honest, because they don't have enough tape and game film on them. But, you have to take every situation and just try to build your games, look at the math behind it, where everybody's going to land. But like rules, I don't have any rules.
I'll go as far to say that I think Mike probably takes, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but just from getting to know him over the last couple of years and following his podcast and all the content that he puts out, I'll say that he would tend to do the opposite rules. I would tend to think that he gets to be on more road teams and more division things because he plays the ownership game more. And I think those things are kind of more herd mentality. And not that that's a bad thing, because I understand, like, we all have those things. But, just like you said, the no Thursday night thing. Well, if last year you had the no Thursday night thing, you probably would have lost, because one of the biggest spots was Jets Patriots. And it was on a Thursday in like week 3. And it was like the pivotal spot. Like if you got through there, I think like 3 or 4 of the highest teams lost the next, on Sunday. So you can really, if you can kind of figure out what the herd is doing, you can kind of combat some of that.
Just to put a bow on this, I think the rules and knowing that other people have rules can help you with your projections, right? Yeah. And you can say, oh, you know what? It's a Thursday game. It's a road division game. Therefore, there might be a few less people on it because a lot of other people have rules, right? Thomas, I heard earlier, David, I don't want to say likes the Bears because he didn't feel great about it, but he's on the Bears. He likes them enough to take them. Mike, not so much with the Bears. We had someone ask a question about the Bears earlier in the show, so I want to put you on the spot and ask you how you feel about this specific game. It's a revenge game for Dennis Allen against the team that he was the head coach for. Dennis Allen, of course, is the defensive coordinator for the Bears. I'm understanding that Kendre Miller, the backup running back for the Saints, hates Dennis Allen because of the way that he was treated. So I'm intrigued by his player props going into tomorrow. What's your breakdown of this Bears-Saints game?
Well, I mean, you guys talked about it, especially with things being baked in and what the line is the line and what the odds are. Like, no, I'm not trying to call Spence out here when he says that the Saints have won 8 of the last 10 versus the Bears. This isn't divisional opponents. How long are we going back to get these numbers? Like it's not a trend that has something to it. Like avoiding Thursday night games because it's the short rest and there's actual things behind that you can say, okay, there's something explainable here for why this effect would be happening of this game being a little more fluky. With this, I'm feeling pretty good about the Bears. I think that there is a little bit of recency bias, and I think that depending on what contest you're in, I mean, them being the 3rd most owned team in Circa this week makes me a little bit less happy to be on them, which I'm not. But if I was picking this game, I probably would avoid it just because of how many people are on the Bears. I think that they're going to win, but I could see this being the spot where maybe Spencer Rattler does pick up that first win, because this team isn't one that I have power rated quite as high as some of the other teams on this list.
I think Thomas brings up something very important, and just something that we haven't really talked about, and Mike and I were kind of discussing it a little bit before show. But so the reason why the Bears are the 3rd most favorite is because the chalk in this contest has really been strong. And so week 1, Denver was by far the most played team. So that means Denver doesn't have a lot of ownership availability. Last week, Green Bay was overwhelming, over 50%. So they don't have a lot available. Because Baltimore was chalk week 2, people have to save more holiday teams. So the decision you make one week has cascading effects throughout the pool, because if this was just a normal pool where we could just use who we want, the Bears would never be third. But this is kind of what makes Mike and Russ so powerful, is they know to fade the Broncos week 1, not because the Broncos might lose to Tennessee, which could happen, but having them available week 7 when they're a 7.5-point favorite, when I have to choose a 4-point Bears team, that's powerful. And the Broncos were half as owned as the Bears, yet they're 3 points more favored. So when you decide to go with the chalk, you're not necessarily doing it for that week. You're also having cascading effects and forcing you to never be able to have that lone team later. And that's one of the powerful methods and one of the powerful things that Mike and Russ do so well is, yes, they might go out early based on some things, but I think a lot of times their logic is not necessarily based on, I think Kansas City is going to lose this week, or I think Denver's going to lose to Tennessee. It's, they could lose, but if I can get through, and even if they get through, I have this ticket that I can play week 7 or week 10 that other people don't have.
Yeah, considering future value is like the most important thing that you can be doing in these contests, or, one of them.
It gives us multiple chances to win the pool. And David, thank you for saying that. And I try to have these conversations with participants, and they look at me like I have a third eyeball. And yes, there's a stronger possibility that we will be out before the mass, but it's a stronger possibility that we will win this contest than others. And I mean, I don't want to be cocky. I'm not trying to come off that way. It's just, this is a winner take all pool. And when people start building narratives, I know we're on the right side. When people start talking about motivations and this, that, and the other, and they start to build this narrative, these are grown men, professional athletes, and every time they get on the field, their game tape is recorded. They are playing, this is their jobs. These are professionals, and the NFL is a week-to-week league because it's all about matchups. If you break down the matchups, you will see exactly how teams are trying to exploit one another. And when you see a team lose, you're like, how can that team lose to them? Well, their strength's better than the other team's weakness, and they exploit it. And people just look from week to week to week and follow the herd. And yes, they might survive, and you might make it to week 14. And hey, fantastic. You got a story. You made it. But in order to win this thing, you have to be able to zig. You have to be able to zag and be on other spots. And, it sucks when we go out. It really does. When we lost in Grandissimo on the Rams and the Bills, but if the Bills would have won, it's always what if. If the Bills would have won, we'd have been 1 of 20. We'd have been on the Colts last week. We'd have been isolated. We would have been in spots to take down these big pools. But, hey, we might be out this week. And you know what? But we can rest on the fact that if we do this long enough, we think we can get to the finish line, and we think we can win this thing again. Maybe.
Great stuff there from a former champion. You brought up Grandissimo there. If we could pull those numbers up, if you have those, Nick, I want to talk a little bit about the Grandissimo numbers. It's just fascinating at this point in the contest because there's only 4 teams selected. So absolutely, this thing could absolutely end tomorrow. And the people on the Patriots, Broncos, and Lions will be cheering their butts off, hoping that the Raiders can upset the Chiefs tomorrow. Talk to me a little bit, guys, about strategy in a contest like this. Completely different. We don't know if it's going to make it to Christmas. Hell, we don't know if it's going to make it to Thanksgiving. So talk to me about your mindset when you're making a pick for Grandissimo versus the normal pool. Let's start with you, David.
Well, I've said before that, I'm not really that happy with the way I played Grandissimo this year. To be honest, I was on the chalk too much. And I think that people are really they're playing the chalk way too much. Like playing the chalk in the 1K, I even get a little bit more because you only have to you have to get through 20 weeks. This thing could be over in week 6. Like you have to take these spots when everybody is converging on another team. I thought the Green Bay pick last week was pretty bad, and the Kansas City pick, it's kind of bad too, to be honest. I don't really see Kansas City losing, but it's not so much, like I said before, it's not so much that Kansas City loses this week, but if you can get through with one of these other teams that these other guys have, now you have the best quarterback in the game, or one of the best quarterbacks in the game, one of the best rosters, one of the best coaches, and you can deploy them in a week where maximum 4 other people can be on them. And so it's like you just have this nuke bomb that you can detonate at any point on the field. And I think these guys really have to start taking some chances, or it's just going to get to Thanksgiving. There's going to be 11 people left, and nobody's going to have any of the best teams left. And it's just going to kind of be, I don't know. One thing I can say is next year I will be taking more chances in Grandissimo. So if you want a piece of somebody who's going to do that, then feel free to hit me up. But if you want somebody who's just going to ride with the chalk every single week, then I probably need to look elsewhere, because I've really come to the realization that Grandissimo, of all things, you really need to not be playing the chalk.
Gotcha. Good stuff there from David. Mike, do you have any other thoughts you want to add about Grandissimo?
Yeah, for sure. We faded the Pats in the main, but gosh darn it, I would be doing a freaking cartwheel right now if I was on the Pats here. What a great spot. You show up with 1 on the Pats, when in fact I thought there would be at least 3 or 4 on the Pats. And listen, I know the Chief backers, and I know there are people that I know that are on the Chiefs, and gosh darn it, like, you can't win this thing. You can only survive. And if I'm a Bronco, if I'm a Lion, and I'm a Pat, you better be prepared to win. You better get down to Circa. You better have all your platforms ready, your money loaded up and ready to go. The Lions have a little bit extra because they're a Monday night game, so they get to sit back in the catbird seat. But we discussed this on the pod. Hey, stranger things that happen. Mahomes can take an ankle, stub a toe, something can happen. Next thing you know, the Raiders, which play Kansas City tough sometimes, they can pull that opposite. And I know when they survive, they're like, see, I told you, but they can't win tomorrow. Where there are 3 other people in this contest that can take this thing down tomorrow, or have it between 2 or 3.
Even if they don't win, they have $1.5 million in equity.
Yeah, saving a chop. And then to David's point that he made earlier, now they have the Chiefs in their back pocket. So there are multiple ways to do it. And like, I don't ever root against anybody, but like, I am not on the Chiefs here. I am not on the Chiefs in Grandissimo. And it's just, it's my theory. And until I'm proven otherwise, it's just, it can't happen. And I said this to my partner, Russ, who might be on here later. When we saw this run out, of course, I go, man, this is the easiest contest to win. And yet here we are sitting on the sideline. So I have to own that. We are on the sideline. We lost the Rams and we lost the Bills, and we lost with 2 good teams in good spots. We are on the sidelines. And so kudos to those that are in there, but the Chiefs backers are not in it to win it.
I know Russ would appreciate me mentioning business partner, not just partner, because he corrected me last time I said that. Mike mentioned that sometimes the Raiders have played the Chiefs tough. We all saw that game with massive Survivor implications last year on Thanksgiving, where the Raiders absolutely deserved to win that game, and something crazy happened at the end of the game. How about 2023? I believe the Raiders were 11.5-point dogs and won outright. So we just don't know in this NFL. Thomas, back to you. If a team is going to score an upset like that tomorrow, who do you think is going to be that big dog that is most likely to go down? And I don't know if we can pull up the Circa Survivor selection counts. That can kind of help too. There we go.
I mean, let me pull up the spreads here, because just off the top, I mean, obviously the Raiders would be the biggest upset just based on the fact that they're the largest spread. Honestly, though, I think I don't know how you can really look at it and say that the Cardinals beating the Packers wouldn't be one of the most likely of the touchdown-ish favorites. The one that I could see being the most likely upset, you've got the travel fiasco going on right now that you guys have already talked about. You've got the fact that the Cardinals are without Kyler Murray. Personally, small sample size, we saw last week, I think this offense is running better with Jacoby Brissett in the first place. I don't know that this is necessarily a downgrade for the Cardinals, and I think the market might be a little slow to catch up here. I might be able to talk myself. I mean, you're never going to win long-term betting tonight, tomorrow. I can tell you, though, that I won't be putting Green Bay in as many teasers as I should be at that 7.5 number, and I might talk myself into grabbing it while I still get the hook if I can get this 7.5 out here. Pinnacle's still got a 7.5. Most of it's down to 7. I'm probably off the game. But I could see that one being the big upset here. I don't think that the Raiders have what it takes to take down the Chiefs in this spot. The Chiefs just look like they are figuring it out at this time. You get Rashee Rice back. You have more weapons on offense. And it's going to take Geno Smith waking up and being the quarterback he was last year for this team to get good again.
Yeah, earlier in the week, my answer to this question was the Broncos. I thought with all the vibes in the Giants locker room, the Broncos with the travel issues, them coming back. But now I see Dre Greenlaw's back for Denver. Giants have a ton of injuries, including their starting center. So now I'm like, feeling a little better about the Broncos in that game. Thomas, any closing thoughts before we let you go? We really appreciate you taking the time and coming on the show today, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It was great talking with you guys, and I hope everyone's enjoying that Survivor Sweat out there. It's the fun of getting in an entry, negotiating with your friends if you're in on one together, of doing it yourself, and just, trying to parlay together 18 games and win a whole bunch of money.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Best of luck to you and your Survivor pools tomorrow, brother.
Same to you guys. Take care.
All right, that was Thomas Viola joining us. We're going to replace him with James Sullivan. He oversees the Survivor Sweat marketplace. How's it going over there, James?
Fantastic. How you guys doing?
We're doing good, man. Great to have you back on the show. Can you give us an update? How's the marketplace looking right now?
It's a busy week in the marketplace. So we had over 140 listings alone last week. There was close to 100 different transactions and sales last week in the marketplace. The average price for their Survivor entries was just over 11,000. So a little over 111 price per point. We sold a handful of pick control entries. People were willing to give up pick control. I think there was 8 of those sales. But yeah, sales were very good last week. It was a busy week. Grandissimo, actually, interestingly enough, I heard you guys talking about that, but there's only one Grandissimo sale last week. There's a handful of listings, only one sale. And though that one sold at pretty close to EV. I think EV was, 4,600 points, sold for 5,000. So Grandissimo, there was a handful of listings, but only one sale last week.
All right, I've got a question for James, but really it's for all three of you guys because all three of you guys are sharp and really good with numbers. So we look at the implied value of an entry right now, $4,422. That's what it is right now, today, going into week 7, okay? What if it was another year, same prize pool, okay? But it's, let's say, I don't know, week 11, and the implied value is $4,422. My question is, what does that do to the market value? Like, are buyers, I don't want to say smart, sophisticated enough to be like, hey, even though it might be worth the same, I'm 4 weeks closer to the end? Or do you say in some situations, yeah, you're 4 weeks closer to the end, but because there's so many people left, you're less likely to win the grand prize, so I'm not willing to pay as much for it? I just wanted to throw this out as a discussion topic because we talk so much about implied value and intrinsic value, but I don't often hear that conversation attached to how many weeks are left. Does anybody want to take a stab at that?
Sure. I think emotion gets into it because specifically as it relates to the seller, because when the seller gets closer to the finish line, they think they can actually get there. And so, everybody's looking for, value. Everybody's looking to get at par. And that's why I think you're seeing less sales in Grandissimo because the price jumped. So there's less people that have that type of cash flow that are now going to get involved with that. Where right now in the main, if it's selling 2X or 3X, people are thinking, oh, that's a ripoff. Like, why am I 2 and 3x. But at the end of the day, this is probably the cheapest you're going to get in, because if there is carnage tomorrow, you're not paying 2 and 3x. You're going to pay way over market, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8x. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, obviously, supply and demand dictates the price and all that stuff. So, as you get closer, I mean, I think Mike's right. I mean, you might see more sellers at that point willing to kind of, cash out at that stage. So I don't know if the supply would lessen the prices a little bit, just off the top of my head, but it's a good question.
James, is there anything that you want potential buyers and sellers to know about the marketplace? Like, do you have any pet peeves as someone who's running this thing? Like, oh, I wish people understood this, or I wish people did this a little differently, or anything like that? Any sort of caveats or things like that you want to share with people that are going to go onto the marketplace for the first time now and potentially make a transaction for the first time this week?
Yeah, the one thing I will say is, like, and I saw this, let's talk about the proxies for a second. So there's still no picks. I mean, we're in week 7. There's still no picks in the contest. And it is like, It is wild to me. These entries now are selling for 5 figures. They're worth $10,000, $11,000. And a proxy cost at this stage, you probably get a proxy for less than $100. So, it is wild to me that there's still people without proxies. Now, I can tell you in the marketplace, that's one thing most of the buyers look at is, like, if you make a listing and it's listed as other proxy, which really stands for like no proxy, there's way less demand for those entries. People want to see that there's a proxy attached to that entry so that they know that their pick is going to get in. And we had a sale a couple of weeks ago that ended up not happening, but there was a buyer and he found out there was no proxy. It was basically someone locally submitted it. And he's like, well, I don't know this guy. I don't know. I mean, is he going to get the pick in? Is he not going to get the pick in? Things like that. People see these no picks in the marketplace and it spooks them out. So they want to know there's a proxy attached. Like I say, it's less than $100 at this stage. Like, get a proxy. And the one thing I can tell you as well, and I'll tell you a quick story, proxies do more than just put your pick in. If you miss the deadline, obviously they're going to contact you. They're going to get your pick in. I'll tell you a quick story about a Circa Millions, somewhat related, but there in the Circa Millions, there's the booby prize. Okay, you get whoever finishes in last place wins prize money. For 2 years in a row, we've had the booby prize winner. Last year, the person that in the rules state you have to put in 5 picks every week. You can't just have a no pick. If you have a no pick, you don't qualify for the booby prize. Last year, there's a gentleman, he was winning the booby prize. He was in first place and he didn't submit his picks. And I called him and I said, sir, we need your 5 picks. And he said, oh, James, I'm doing so bad in that contest. And I said, yeah, actually, you are doing so bad.
You're doing so bad, you're doing good.
You actually are doing so bad that you're in first place and you're in the running for $100,000. This guy ended up winning $100,000. The proxy, we saved him from losing $100,000. He would have been out. And the same thing happening in this year with the first quarter. The kid that won the first quarter, the last week, he did not submit his picks. We had to call him. We had to get his picks. He ended up winning the booby prize for the first quarter. So anyways, my point is proxies are there to help you, to save you, to get your picks in. Get a proxy. That's my one.
Did I understand you correctly, James? Did I understand correctly that someone could get a mid-season proxy right now? I heard you say at this point. So, like, if I'm looking in the marketplace and there's an entry for sale that I like, but it doesn't have a proxy, can I buy it and call you up and say, hey, I just bought this entry. Will you be my proxy for $100-ish? Is that an option or no?
It's case by case. So okay. It depends on how many entries are on that card. If there's multiple entries, then it gets complicated. Then the person that has that card would have to turn over all the entries to the proxy. You can't have multiple people in the card. If there's only one entry on the card, then it's very easy for a proxy to take over that entry mid-season. So it's case by case, but absolutely it can be done. If you don't have a proxy, reach out to one. Get a proxy at this stage.
Gotcha. Good stuff there. Anything else you want to share, James, before we let you go, my friend?
No, the only other thing I would say is I encourage people just to load their entries into Survivor Sweat, even if you're not going to list at this stage. It tracks your picks. It shows you the value of your entry. You kind of get used to using the site, and then if and when you're ever ready to, list in the marketplace, you're a little bit more familiar with how the site works. But anyone can load their entry. It doesn't just have to be our proxy customers. Anyone can load their entry. Anyone can list in the marketplace. So I encourage everyone just to, at this stage, load your entry, see what it's worth, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to, even if you want to put a ridiculous price on it, 3 or 4 times what they're going for, it doesn't hurt to just have it up there, and maybe you get a nibble, maybe you get a counter offer, right? Because that's a thing now, right? Where people are giving counter offers. Can you explain that before you go?
Yeah, you can, when you list it, the site works like eBay. Someone can come in, they could buy it now, or you can make offers back and forth, counter offers until you come to an agreement. So it has that ability built into the site. So yeah, you can negotiate on different listings throughout until you both agree on the price.
So is there infinite counters? Can I counter and then not counter, and then another counter, or does it sort of like cut you off at some point?
Yeah, no, you can counter back and forth, go back and forth until one party accepts it, and then once you accept it, then it triggers the contract. But you can go back and forth on it for sure.
Nice, good stuff. Did I interrupt you there, David?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as we've talked about multiple times here, like every year is its own unique animal, and we've seen a lot of people play similar lineups and similar paths. So having a unique path and having unique or teams available like Denver, like Buffalo, like Kansas City, like Green Bay, like some of these teams that you're gonna be able to be a little bit contrarian later on down the line, and they're also good teams. That's really kind of the benefit that Survivor Sweat has. I was going through yesterday. I was just killing time on my phone like I do for much of the day. And I just went through and I was just going through all the Survivor picks and like, okay, this one's already used Baltimore and Buffalo. I don't want that one. This one's used it. This one has Baltimore and Buffalo and Seattle gone. Okay. It's just like every other one that I already have in other ones. But then there's other ones where you go on, it's like, oh, Cincinnati was used. Oh, Jacksonville was used. Arizona was used, and it's like, okay, now I can see some paths. This one is more unique to me, and this is something that even if I already have entries, I could add it to my portfolio of entries, just to have some more unique paths. You don't necessarily have to be like, well, I'm out, let me buy back in. It's like, well, I already have multiple paths with Baltimore and Detroit used, but what I don't have is a path that Jacksonville and Cincinnati are used. So let me get one of those entries in my portfolio. Because I've already burned all my Denvers, but I would love to have a Denver left for week 10 or for Christmas. So Survivor Sweat gives you that option to go through and look at them and kind of like see the paths that they've already taken.
Yeah, really good point. Well, James, thanks so much. We love having you on this show and giving us an update on the marketplace. We look forward to having you back next week and hearing how things are going.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Good luck this week.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to bring in our next guest. Several appearances on the show. Is one of our favorite faces here, Paulie Howard from VSiN Follow the Money. How's it going, Paulie?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad at all, brother. I got to know, man, what was your instant reaction to those selection numbers? We saw Steelers come in about 4-ish%. Kansas City pretty much tied with the Patriots as the number one selection, but both of those numbers were really high, about 19% of the Bears. What were your thoughts, man?
Well, I was just listening to David, and I thought what he said was excellent and spot on. I'm just shocked what happened here with all the Pittsburgh. I mean, Cincinnati's season was on the line. I just that was a bizarre pick to me. I thought the Bengals could win the game, but 181 was a surprise. Kansas City, 29%. Like, how many people? They're so valuable because of Christmas and Thanksgiving. So how you're looking at it with who you have left on Thanksgiving, and maybe is Baltimore back in play? I don't know how they're looking at that either. I'm stunned by all the Kansas City, not only in Circa Survivor, but also in Grandissimo. The bigger surprise might be Grandissimo.
Yeah.
To have only 15 people left and everyone almost thinks the same, where you can't trust Williams and the Bears and the weather. You don't trust the Patriots, 3 straight road games, or Denver at home. Or you say, I thought for sure you could sneak in Kansas City here in Grandissimo and not that many people would use them, that people would zag. But now it appears that there's so many people that are just trying to survive and get to the finish line in Grandissimo. Who knows? This thing might get to Thanksgiving now. It could throw a wrench into things. But I'm stunned by all the Kansas City. I cannot believe all the Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to getting on Survivor Atlas later tonight and seeing all these people that took Kansas City. Did they back themselves into a corner? Like, how many people have now used Kansas City and Detroit and Baltimore and only have Philly, for instance, on Thanksgiving? I can't wait to see those numbers. I was playing around with it earlier this week, and I saw, and by the way, this was before 10% was on Denver. I saw 1,400 and change had used both Buffalo and Denver already coming into this week. And I'm like, That's a big chunk of the pool that's going to be stretching on week 10. So I can't wait to play around with it and see what these people who took Kansas City are left with on Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's going to be fascinating. But Paulie, you bring up the Bengals being desperate in that game against the Steelers. I need to know how you feel about this Bengals team moving forward. Like, I don't want to overreact to one performance from Flacco, but still, that team looked a lot different, and it's got me wondering about this Ravens-Bengals matchup on Thanksgiving. So where's your head at with this Bengals team, period?
Well, that total's got to be 60, number one. If everyone's healthy. Number two, I think they're dangerous. Their adjusted win total before the game was 5.5, heavily juiced to the over. As I said, if they protect Flacco, he's going to have a field day against Pittsburgh. I didn't expect the running game to look like that. But you just see the weapons that they have, and the KG veteran, a little bit of Higgins, a little bit of Chase. There's a little Noah Fant. And you saw it in the second half against Green Bay. You know, I had Green Bay in one contest, and it's like this is a 6-point game. And if Green Bay doesn't convert the first down, Cincinnati has a chance to win the game. So you just see that it's not going to be completely reminiscent of when they have Burrow, but they're going to be dangerous. Now, they can't stop anything. But there's a lot of winnable games coming up, and those 2 games in 3 weeks against Baltimore could decide if this team sneaks in or even can win 9 games. And I'm totally with Mike Tomlin knew. He saw it. What's Andrew Berry doing? How do you help out your division rival? How do you say Pickett's our guy? Trade him. Flacco's our guy. Trade him. And now you're helping out Cincinnati, and you gave them life. So I don't think it was plus 350, something like that, to make the playoffs. I don't think that's outrageous at all.
Yeah, and I think the Bengals were kind of considered left for dead in terms of Circa Survivor. You bring up they have a couple winnable games. How about how they finish the season, guys? Week 17 at home against Arizona, maybe in the snow for a desert team coming to Cincinnati, and then versus Cleveland at home. So I think suddenly this becomes a big conversation that you need to consider. Do I save Cincinnati for the last couple weeks, or maybe they're about to get hot and there's a couple opportunities to use Cincinnati at some point in the next few weeks when other people aren't going to be on them and don't quite believe in them yet.
Yeah.
But Paulie, the question I asked our last guest, I'm curious to know your thoughts. Who do you think is the most likely big favorite to go down this week?
I'd have to say the Bears. Even though, I mean, it's just they were fortunate to beat the Raiders. The Commanders handed them the game Monday night. You got a short week off the big win. I know the Saints are bad, and I think if you play the Saints, by the way, it's got to be in play. They're 0-6 ATS in the first quarter, and they've been outscored something like 65-16, and Johnson can script the plays, and they might be able to go right down the field. But the thing that also gives me pause is 3 straight road games for the Patriots, even though it's labeled with revenge, but you might get a boost from the new coach, and Callahan might have been one of the worst coaches we've ever seen. So it's also not a great spot for Denver, up the London game and how bad they looked. And imagine all the hype and New York nonsense if Dart's able to look good and beat that defense as well going on the road. But I'll take the easy way out. I will say the Bears.
All right. And Paulie, if you're willing to disclose how many entries you've got left in Circa Survivor and where you landed this week.
All out.
You're out. Okay. Oh man, who took you out? I'm sorry.
Arizona got me. I was right there with David Baker when I couldn't believe I had the Packers on Sunday night with the tie, score 40 points on the road, get a tie, couple entries there. I had the Rams on Thursday night minus $9 in play, fumble at the 1 yard line.
Rule.
I followed that up with 4 on Arizona when dropping the ball at the 1 yard line would have been 28-6 with 11 minutes left.
Absolutely
so
brutal.
That is it.
Absolutely brutal. So if you were still in it, where would you land, or where were you planning to land this week?
Mitch Moss would have talked me into Cleveland. I think that would have been a good zag, which might have been a little crazy, but again, 19 teams selected, which I can't believe. I just think Miami has got issues in the locker room. Tua has to apologize. They can't stop the run. He's 1-8 road neutral. It's going to be cold. It's going to be a ton of Judkins. You see how his rushing prop exploded and went up. I think the Browns win. I think that's a good zag here, just also because how important Kansas City is for the holidays.
You bring up the Dolphins locker room drama. I think that's very fair. I don't hear as many people talking about potential Jets locker room drama. I read into Garrett Wilson's comments as throwing his coach under the bus. You got a winless team at this point, and I don't remember a coach looking as bad on a drive as the Jets head coach did last week, Aaron Glenn, right before halftime. You had the weird fake punt where he had all his starters on the offensive line in there. Did you see him run across the freaking field? I think there was a spot that he was going to check out. That was bizarre. And then the worst of all of them, not throwing the ball, Hail Mary, or doing anything and just letting the clock run out. Do you think there's the potential that he's already lost that Jets locker room and we're just not hearing about it quite yet?
Yeah, that's possible. He might be worse than Callahan. Certainly he's done a lot of stupid stuff along the way, and there's just no semblance of a passing attack either. I couldn't believe his reaction, to double down on what you said. I couldn't believe his reaction after the game when he was asked about a quarterback change. I mean, he had negative passing yards. He was like, where'd that comment or question come from? He said he was shocked. I think to play against them next week, that's the Bengals. And I wouldn't be surprised. It's hard to get on Carolina, though, with Bryce Young 1-15 on the road, and they failed to cover 10 in a row as a favorite. But I think the Jets are a good go against as well. You could be onto something there. If there's not a quarterback change, if he's lost that locker room, you might be right.
Yeah, and not only his post-game comments, he also messed up the yardage. People were asking him about a field goal attempt, and he was off on the yardage by like 5
Terrible,
or 6 yards.
too. I know.
Ridiculous.
Folks already
Absolutely
kicked from
ridiculous.
58. What are you doing? You have no passing attack. Run the ball and trot him out from 61. You got a better opportunity. That was also
I would say there's no way we're noticing this and the players in the locker room aren't. So I think it's bubbling up. Are the Jets the team to fade in Circa Survivor right now?
I want to see what Tennessee looks like Sunday.
Yeah.
Let me see what that looks like. I still think it's Tennessee. At least the Jets have been competitive in some games. I mean, it was a fluke, but they had a chance to beat Denver. I mean, I couldn't believe Denver was trying to give that game away. And then what also they did week 1 against Pittsburgh. They also could have beat Miami. They fumbled a couple times and were driving, going in, and they fumbled. So I think it's got to be Tennessee as the ultimate go against.
All right. And then another question I've been dying to ask you. Talk to me about this Bills team. Where is your 1 to 10? Where's the panic meter on the Bills?
8.5.
Ooh, that's high, Paulie. Talk to me, buddy.
Josh Allen has to be Superman for them to win. They are a below average team when he's average. If you take him off that team, they might be one of the worst teams in the league. Remember last year, they were plus 24 last year in the turnover margin. Their defense stinks. But when you get those turnovers, it covers up a lot of the stuff and your bad defense. So if they're not taking the ball away, you saw it in the opener against Baltimore. You saw how they got gashed against Robinson. If Allen is just average and they don't take the ball away, they're going to be in a world of hurt. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots win that division now.
All right. Now, you mentioned them getting gashed and how bad their defense is. We've seen them get torn apart in the running game. You got a team in Carolina they're going to be playing soon. And Rico Dowd's the best running back statistically in the NFL the last couple weeks, and they're getting Chuba Hubbard back. How do you feel about trusting a team like the Bills against Carolina?
I'd have to look at the options there on the.
Well, even not even comparing it to other teams, not even comparing it to other teams there that week in Circa Survivor. Just, do you think the Bills are trustworthy against the Panthers?
They lost that Jacksonville game years ago too, when Jacksonville was terrible. I'd have to look at the other options on that. I don't know. If I make it that far, I don't really want to go crazy and use a road team. And Bryce Young's been a different quarterback at home. I'd have to look at the other options, but that wouldn't be that high on my list to take the Bills right there. Remember, they struggled with look at all the teams they struggled with, and look at who their wins are against.
Yeah.
That's Ravens, Saints. There's not much on that resume.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of me wants to give the Bills a little benefit of the doubt and say Milano's been out, Ed Oliver's been out, and maybe when they get fully intact, they'll be a little better. I don't know, though. The concern level's high. 8.5 is a high number, and that's good stuff from you there, man. Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about Grandissimo and those numbers. If we can pull those up again, Nick. 12 on the Chiefs, 1 on the Patriots, 1 on the Broncos, 1 on the Lions. What's your reaction specifically to this here, Paulie?
I thought there'd be some Bears. I thought there'd be more Denver. I thought there'd be more. I'm stunned by the Kansas City.
Yeah.
I think we agree this wasn't going to get to Thanksgiving, but now with this here, I want to look also at Survivor Atlas, and I want to see what people have available on Thanksgiving, because that brings it into play now with all these people taking Kansas City. The other thing that comes to mind is you could get a Scoop Jackson here.
Yep.
We've seen this. I think it was done a couple weeks ago that the guy picked the London game, but there's a scenario here where you could put your feet up on Monday night, try to make a phone call to Derek Stevens, get some money wired in, and an ultimate hedge. You had that a couple weeks ago with so many people on the Packers as well against the Bengals. So if you get a Giants upset, if you get a miracle win out of Tennessee, and then something. Listen, Mahomes is 36-2 straight up when laying more than a touchdown since 2020. The 2 losses are against the Raiders. Not that I think Geno Smith will shock the world, but if that happens, I mean, you got to make phone calls and get ready. You call David Baker and see if we can make a deal, because this really becomes wild about if you got the Lions on Monday night and 12 people go out.
Love it.
That's insanity. You got to be ready. It was like, what was it, 3 years ago? Mike knows this. It was that Steeler Raider game.
You got to be ready.
If Carr picks up that first down, or what happened in that Tennessee game as well, all hell breaks loose, and you could scoop the whole thing.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
I'll help you broker something. Just give me a little cut. We'll figure it out.
We've got David's Twitter handle up there. Take note, folks.
Yeah.
Mike, were you about to say something?
No, it's he's absolutely right. You have to be prepared to win this contest. And we discussed this on our pod the other day in Grandissimo. Even if you're not in Grandissimo, you have to look at what will happen when it's sub 20, sub 15, and how you would act accordingly. And you need to have money, whether it's deposited at Circa or other platforms, and you have to be ready to deploy it, because it might be Saturday night, you see this, the wires, the feds are shut down. We're a part of a bank that you can't get money from point A to point B. You have to be prepared to win this contest. Now, in Grandissimo, I think more people are. I think funds are a little bit more easy to get their hands on. But in the main, you'll have somebody that is down here, and all of a sudden they'll turn around and the review will show up, and they're not prepared to win the contest. And so you have to be ready. You know, whether it's Derek on the phone, and you have to qualify for this. Like this, you can't just show down and show up and say, I need $1 million credit. You have to be prepared to do so. So play the, if you're not in Grandissimo, play it as if you were, and be ready to win this. You know, Kansas City, if you're on the Chiefs, you're not ready to win this. If you're on one of those 3 teams, you got a shot.
Paul, before we let you go, can you give us a carnage prediction for tomorrow, just in terms of like what would you set the over-under at in terms of the percentage of people that will be knocked out in Week 7?
Let's see, 19 teams used again. We already got 181 out. 4-0 picks again. I thought James was excellent on that. What are you doing? What are you doing? Even if you're a local, you got to have a proxy. You just said, let's see, Bears go down, Denver. We'll lose about 550 people on Sunday.
550. You taking the over or the under, Mike Buckmiller?
I mean, I'm going to put my neck out there. I'm going to take the over. There's going to be some serious carnage tomorrow. All these teams out here with these percentages on, other than the Chiefs, are frauds.
Wow. And I'm going to say it again. I think the weather, not just in that Browns game, there's weather in several games. You know, the Patriots running back has fumbling problems. That game might be a little sloppy and wet. So I think the weather could be a big factor in Circa Survivor Carnage tomorrow. David, over or under 550?
I think under. I hope the Patriots go down, but I don't see Denver losing. I don't see the Chiefs losing. I really don't see the Patriots losing. The Bears, obviously they can, but I'm trying to sneak a few entries through with them. So that's really just a 4-team parlay at this point. And I like all 4 of those teams to win. So the only ones that I could see, I don't know. I'm not in love with the Packers spot. And I'm not, and I don't like Seattle, but there's only like 50 people on them. So I think it's a favorite week.
40-mile-per-hour gusts in Chicago are possible as well. So it's going to be a fun day of football tomorrow. Paulie Howard, thanks so much for coming back. We appreciate you. Best of luck with your bets tomorrow, man.
Good luck, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Paulie.
Take care, brother. All right, another familiar face joins the show. Russ, how's it going, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Have you had a chance to watch the show a little bit, or are you coming in cold?
Came in from dinner. My wife was watching it in the car. She wanted to know where Rachel was. She's heard a ton about her and just didn't get to see her. She's like, who the hell's this guy?
No Rachel on the show. You're taking her spot, though, so we're glad to have you on the show. What was your reaction, Russ?
And there go the viewers.
What was your reaction to the numbers coming out?
Pretty much as expected. I was driving, so it was tough to take notes. But I'm going to address some of the things you guys just talked about. As Mike said, and I'm not directly addressing the numbers, but you got to be ready to win. And the reality is most people are not ready to win. And although self-serving as it sounds to Survivor Sweat, if you can't get 6 to 7 figures down at Circa, the reality is somebody will get 6 to 7 figures at Survivor Sweat. So, you can try to hedge, but if you can't, the reality is you can sell your entry. You can sell half of it. You can sell 80% of it, 90% of it, 10% of it. But there's an outlet, whereas a few years ago, there was not an outlet. Also, Circa learned a little something last year. They got to be careful letting people hedge too early. They gave some people a lot of credit early and realized that they were stacking the credit. And at the end of the day, there's a problem because you can't force a person to make a certain pick. So what do you do if the guy wants to make a stupid pick at the end and that, now Circa can't get paid? They got to chase this guy down for the money, right? So they also realize they have to be careful letting people hedge too early and extending too much credit. It's one thing like if you're on the Monday night game in Grandissimo and everyone's busted and you have the Lions, they know 100% you already have the Lions, so you're going to win the whole pool or you're not, right? But if it's not that situation and one other team advances with you, they have to be careful letting you hedge. And this goes to something you asked earlier on, so I can prove I was listening, right? When you said, what's the difference when it's week 6 or week 12, right? The difference is that, right, if you don't even know anything about the game at all, but you're like a hedge fund guy, you can show up in week 15 and say, this is the value of this. And if I get this discount, this is how much it's going to cost me to hedge for 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 5 weeks. And I can effectively guarantee this profit, right? Yep. Pretty close. When you're in week 5, the permutations are still too much. Even with just a few entries, it's just really difficult to know how many hedges you're going to have to make and how much it's going to cost. So back to your question.
You answered all the questions I didn't ask, but it was good stuff though, man.
They were fun. I mean, they were I was like I said, I was trying to take notes and couldn't do it, but
love it.
I'm a little surprised in the main the Chiefs were as taken as they were. I thought they would fall to the second position. I thought a few more people might want to hold them for some of the special weeks, and not just the special weeks. They have good spots.
Yeah,
like coming up, right? So
week 16 with Titans.
Yeah, and they're an ascending team too.
And the game, it's so tricky with the Chiefs because in years past, Mike and I have discussed early in the season, how much will week, 16, 17, 18, particularly 17 and 18, NFL weeks, not Circa weeks, 19, 20 for Circa, how much will those ultimately matter for the Chiefs? They could have home field locked up. Usually in that division, they would have had it historically locked up. This year, because they had a little bit of a slow start, they're less likely to have it locked up. So it's actually more likely that week 16, 17, 18 will matter for them. And Paulie's gone. I would have loved to join while he was still there. When you asked on the Ravens, 1 to 10, the fear factor, what do you say, 7 or 8? Yeah.
Concern level,
For me, I mean, maybe it's a 4. I know Mike went out the other day on our joint account, and he went in and he, bet the Ravens to win the division. He got some bets for the Ravens. I thought the prices would be better, but to win the conference. And the reality is, you look at it in the AFC. I mean, right now you've got the Colts leading the conference, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Patriots, Bills. I mean, when you asked about the Bills, I'm sorry, like the fear level in the Bills. I said the Ravens, the Bills. I mean, the Bills don't have to do much to win that division. I actually don't think the Patriots win the division. We had some picks on the Patriots in week 1. I thought they were going to be a better team than other people think they did. They lost to the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders are terrible. Now the Patriots are showing some signs of life, but they haven't played anybody. They haven't beaten anybody either. And the Bills and the Ravens and, to some degree, the Chiefs, they showed up with the classic NFL. You won your division. You're getting a crappy schedule. Congratulations. Right. And they lost some of their close games. You had the Bills Ravens game early on, Bills Chiefs. I mean, those are all championship type games that they had to play at the beginning of the season. And yeah, the Bills shouldn't lose last week, but okay, they have 2 losses. I mean, they're 4-2. They're fine. Everyone's panicking about the Bills. I mean, I think right now the Bills and just like what you would expect coming in, the Bills, the Chiefs, and probably the Ravens are going to be battling for the conference in the playoffs. We all said we liked the Colts. Like Mike and I said we liked the Colts early on. None of us are sitting here saying we think the Colts are going to the Super Bowl. It's possible, but if you tell me I can take the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens, and you can have the field in the AFC, I mean, David, you're not taking the field, right? To go to the Super Bowl, you'll take those 3 teams versus the field, and we all will.
No, for sure.
Right? I mean,
I got some people came at me, but I mean, I bet several Ravens futures this week. I bet them at 25-1 to win it all, 12-1 to win the AFC, because they are so. The AFC is just very, very, very weak, and if they get to the playoffs, I think they'll be a favorite versus everybody. Maybe not the Chiefs in case, but I mean, we already saw.
And maybe the Bills, maybe not, but all 3 of those teams can win any game on any field.
So yeah.
Right.
Soft schedule too for the Ravens.
Very soft. Very
complete cream puff schedule when they get healthy. They actually had a tough schedule for the year, but they played the tough games.
And that's kind of some of the benefit of not taking the Ravens week 2. I mean, on my picks, on a couple of my picks, I took the Ravens week 2. And now I look at the schedule and I'm like, oh my gosh, how much would I pay to just be able to have the Ravens back for the rest of this year? And then also that's another thing about the holiday weeks, leaving things open. If you back yourself into the corner where you have to play the Ravens on Thanksgiving because you played the Chiefs now, because you played the Lions a few weeks ago, now you're looking at, well, not only do you have to play the Ravens on Thanksgiving, but you can't deploy them on these other weeks where they're going to be massive favorites and low owned because everybody's saving them for the holiday week. So it's kind of like a double. There's all these compounding effects. And that's the reason why it is smart to try to sneak some entries through with, some of these suboptimal teams. The people who played the Saints a few weeks ago, they played the Raiders last week. People who played the Browns this week, people who played either Carolina or the Jets, these picks have cascading effects to be able to play these better teams when they're lower owned.
And you're absolutely right. And, you addressed that. You were talking about that earlier, and I did appreciate that too. And I know Mike thanked you, but when we avoid the public chalk, you're right. We're avoiding the chalk because we don't want to be where everybody else is. But it is also because we want to be able to take those good teams when other people don't have them, right? That is that compounding effect. And Mike knows, and we talk about it all the time. The year we won, we had held the Ravens, one of the best teams in football, and we had held them, and we had held them, and we had held them. And we managed to play them when only 4 people had them out of maybe 180 left. And they were literally the biggest favorite on the board. And 3 minutes in, Lamar Jackson gets hurt, right? And, they won the game, but that's not the spot we were looking for, right? But at the end of the day, we are looking for the spot where we can be on an island or close to an island. And on Grandissimo, I think it's great. I think that the people that are not on the Chiefs are, my initial instinct was, the person on, I love the Lions pick. And then I said, well, I actually kind of love the Broncos pick. And I'm like, actually, the Patriots pick's really good because it keeps the Broncos and the Lions alive, right? So all 3, I'm not even sure which one I like most. I'm really not. Yeah. I hadn't had a lot of time to think about it. They're all really, really good for slightly different reasons.
Yeah.
I actually probably prefer the Lions pick to the Broncos pick. The Broncos have some decent spots coming up in congested weeks, but it's close. Between the Patriots and the Lions, I like them both for different reasons. And as you both said, I hate the Chiefs pick. What's always interesting, and I have no idea the answer, of the people that have the Chiefs pick, I wonder what percentage of them go, oh, this isn't what I was hoping for, or they're all like, whatever, this is the week I'm pushing the button, I'll worry about it next week.
Yeah, well, they did that last week too. So now it's 2 weeks in a row. And then next week,
Correct.
a few weeks ago, the Colts were only played on like 4 entries. So next week, everybody's going to press the Colts or, the Patriots. Next week, there actually are some options. So maybe next week's where it forks. But, one thing that I will say, I've really enjoyed doing this show, and I appreciate Survivor Sweat for allowing me to have this platform and also be on this discussion. I've learned a lot from both you guys, all you guys really, and all the guests that we've had throughout the show. But I've definitely gathered a lot of thoughts to change my things that Mike, you, and Russ do. The one thing that I will say that, maybe it's giving away more into how I'm thinking about things in the future. But one thing that I do like is how you do avoid the chalk. But one thing that I don't is sometimes I feel like maybe you guys avoid the chalk, but you play good teams too early. And I think maybe using those good teams early when you really can't win the contest, you might be better off. You played the Chiefs against the Giants, you played the Rams a little, you played the Niners a little. Maybe if you are going to get off the chalk, and this is me talking through my process maybe for next year, it's maybe if I'm going to get off those chalk, it's to play a Jacksonville or a Colts or a team that is maybe peaking early, but you're probably not going to want to use later, not to necessarily deploy my KC bomb in week 3 or to, deploy my Niners bomb in week 2 or whatever week that was, or things like that, because having these teams available, and also if you do want to monetize it, you can get a lot more for your entry on Survivor Sweat. Granted, you could be out, if you take the Browns this week or the Panthers or the Jets or the Dolphins or the Bears. But if you do get those through, now your entry is worth a hell of a lot more than the guys who chose the Chiefs. So you are making a strategical bet.
So David, you're right. And there's a lot of theory to think that for sure. We thought this week would be the Chiefs bomb. That's why we were taking them early. And the main and Grandissimo are 2 completely different contests in general, as we know. But we are looking when those bombs are going to go off and when we would take them and not take them. And so, yes, we took that line with the Chiefs on that Sunday night early because we weren't going to take them here.
Yeah, and not necessarily. I'm not necessarily critical. I'm just trying to adapt. Some of the things that you guys do that I'm learning from and getting a lot better at this. But also just some of the ways that I may be able to refine it in the future, because just being able, and the thing is, you just don't know how the NFL season is. It's the people who took Cincinnati week 1, they feel great. They've used Cincinnati. And Burrow might not come back. Who knows what we're going to get with Flacco? We look good this week, but we don't know. But you easily could be looking at this point in the Bengals could be 6-1. If Burrow is healthy and the defense is a little bit better than we thought, and be like, oh, these guys burned the Bengals. How stupid, burning Bengals in week 1. So we never know how things are going to play out.
Sure.
No, actually, David, to your point, and I think I don't want this to get lost because it is something you just mentioned and Mike didn't directly address. He addressed the fact that we do go through the process of, I'm not saying it's exactly equal, but if we can take them, 5% owned in week 3 versus 5% owned in week 14, we're still getting them 5% owned as opposed to 30% owned. One of the nuanced points you made, though, was if you can do that in week 13, it enables you to actually monetize it more. Right?
Yes.
Whereas in week 3, we're not monetizing it. Yes, we're picking up equity, but it's different. The ultimate equity could be the same, but the ability to actually, create liquidity and monetize it. And you are right. We actually don't spend a lot of time saying, okay, what can we do to monetize our picks later? Because the nature of our group, and I had this discussion with not Mike, with somebody else the other day.
Yeah, you're not.
What would it take for us to sell? And I said, it's a business, not a baby. At some point, you have to be willing to sell it. There's got to be some price. But we've never listed anything to sell. We've sold some stakes preseason in Grandissimo for Survivor Sweat, etc. But we've never listed a piece of our mains to sell. If we were, I think you're right. I think that's a very significant point, that we're better off doing it later when you can actually, it's not that the EV is different. The EV probably would be similar as you go, but your ability to monetize it would be better when you have that team in your pocket, I believe.
Well, I mean, not necessarily. Like if you lose 20% of the pool in week 1, like your entry is worth $1,200, you're picking up $200 worth of equity per entry. And if you're losing 20% in week 14, you might be picking up 200,000 worth of equity. So it is not necessarily a dollar for dollar, yes, in a percentage, but it's kind of theoretical value at this point. If you're not planning on selling, it's actually real value.
No, but I think it's a fair point.
Yeah.
I think it's a very fair point. If we thought we were even 30% to sell, like I'm not saying we're zero, there's got to be some percentage chance we're willing to sell a piece. But the more we look at the ability to sell or the likelihood to sell, and when we did this in 22, there was no ability to sell, right? So it's still sort of ingrained in us that we're not really looking to sell. And I don't even know what our partners would say if we say, hey, we sold 20%. They might go, wait, what? Or they might go, oh, great, we sold it at 2x. Like, I don't know. But you also diverting a little bit when you mention, we don't know what happens with the NFL. We don't know about special weeks, into a little bit of how the sausage is made. When we spit out today one pick on the Lions, and Mike says to me, really? Like, we're really going to burn the Lions here? Like, this isn't a great spot for them, right? And I don't know if that came out on our, because we have a bunch of picks and literally have one out of all of our picks on the Lions. And it's like, well, why are we doing this? And we went back and forth and we could have pulled it. We could have replaced it with something else. And, we looked and I said, well, maybe we want to take them on Christmas. And Mike goes, dude, we're never taking the Lions on Christmas. Like, that's not a great spot on Christmas. And then he goes, the whole world is going to be on Washington. By the way, Christmas and Thanksgiving is always the one time I wrestle with. Am I willing to just push the button? Take the chalk, take the favorite. There are 4 games. And I think people can get a lot of edge by taking the dog, but I don't know that I have the stones to do it. Like to take the 35% team there when everybody's on the 65.
Right.
But I said to him, and I think it's a very fair question. And Tony, it's a similar question that you might ask. It's in that same, wheelhouse. All right, well, let's say we get to Christmas and Jaden Daniels is not healthy. Would I rather take Washington at home against Dallas with a sick, with Daniels out, or would I rather go ahead and take the Lions against on the road in Minnesota, I think?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, and Mike's like, oh, man, like really?
We literally had that conversation today discussing what would happen if Daniels was out.
Yeah.
And Mike's like, yeah, fine. I guess I take the Lions there. Like, that's like, you're painting like this really tough scenario, but they happen in the NFL. I mean, we've seen Daniels be out.
I mean, how about this week? Daniels is in this week, but Deebo Samuel's out, McLaurin's out, Noah Brown's out. All 3 of their top wide receivers are out. So how would you feel if this was the Christmas week, this exact situation?
And look at the last month with Kansas City. Mahomes has been in every game.
Right.
Like physically playing in every game. Yeah. And every game, even the Giants game where we had them and they did win and they pulled away, but like it wasn't comfortable in the first half.
Right.
You're looking at this going, oh my God, you always like to think the week you push the button on the Chiefs, because you're never pushing the button on the Chiefs when they're playing the Bills or the Ravens when they're healthy or the Eagles. Like that's never when you're hitting the Chiefs, right? You'd like to think when you're hitting the Chiefs, that's your bye week. You've advanced, right? And so to have any sweat is just miserable on those weeks.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people on this screen that have some love for the Ravens in the futures market. I have a question for you guys, and I realize this isn't really a Survivor Sweat question. It's a betting question, but humor me for a minute here. John Harbaugh is 400-1 for Coach of the Year. I know it sounds crazy, but has a coach ever started 1-5 and won his division? The Ravens have 2 games left against Pittsburgh. If he wins them both, they pick up 2 games and get the tiebreaker. Is it crazy to maybe a little pizza money, as Paulie Howard would say, on 400-1 on Harbaugh for Coach of the Year?
I like it. Where's the line?
FanDuel. I saw it on FanDuel earlier today.
I like it. I like it because, I mean, the reality is their division is trash. I mean, with all due respect to anybody that likes one of those other 3 teams in the division. I mean, the division's trash. Right? The division's trash.
You need a narrative for that award. And if the narrative is they started 1-5 and he won his last 10 or 11 games and won the division,
it's ridiculous.
That might be enough.
And I'm a big Harbaugh fan, by the way. Like, I think it was 10 days ago, people were saying he may get fired. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Fame coach. Literally, he has to be a Hall of Fame coach. He's one of the most quiet, subdued Hall of Fame coaches, has to be a Hall of Fame coach, banged up with injuries. It's insane. And by the way, if he runs the table and wins the Super Bowl, I still don't think he actually deserves Coach of the Year. I'll take the 400-1 because like he's got a great team. Like that was banged up. He's in a crappy division. Mike went to look. What was the line? The line for them to win the division was like plus 115. Like it's barely anything. It's even.
Yeah.
And like you said, David, once they're in the playoffs, like whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Well, folks, I think we've done all we can. I'm very excited about these games tomorrow. We got an early kickoff, 6:30 Pacific time, Jaguars-Rams. Not Survivor implications, but always nice to have an early game. It's going to be fun, guys. Wacky weather tomorrow. Mike Buckmiller is on the record as predicting carnage. It's going to be a lot of fun. Enjoy the games. Best of luck to everybody. We'll see you again next week.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.